So back to the Rededicate 250 event at the National Mall on Sunday, which has been widely criticized as promoting Christian nationalism and blurring the lines between church and state. Imagine it's 2012 and Mitt Romney won the election, and then he held a prayer fest on the National Mall with the Tabernacle Choir providing music. And the speakers were members of the Romney administration, but mostly leaders of our church. If you are a shared member of my faith, maybe you think that sounds great. But now imagine it's 2032 and Zoran Mamdani is the president, and the prayer event in the National Mall is led by Muslim imams with new sheets playing in the background. How does that make you feel? If it makes you uncomfortable, ask yourself why, and also ask yourself how it's any different from what happened on Sunday. If you say the obvious difference is because America was founded as a Christian nation, I will remind you once again that while many of the founders were Christian and or religious, they were committed to religious freedom, not to making America a Christian nation. That's what they left behind them in England. They were escaping state-run religion. That's why there's no mention of Christ or Christianity in any of our founding documents. That's why Article 6 of the Constitution prohibits religious tests for public office. That's why the First Amendment bars the government from establishing a national religion while also protecting religious freedom. Before the 1950s, when the phrase "under God" was added to the Pledge of Allegiance and the phrase "in God we trust" was added to our money, both in response to the rising state atheism of Russia during the Cold War, the original motto of the United States adopted in 1782 was "E pluribus unum," or "out of many one," which reflected our country's goal of unifying a group of diverse people with a plurality of beliefs. We have centuries of historical evidence for what happens when one religion gains political power and tries to dominate a culture, Christian or otherwise, but let's stick with Christianity. Centuries after the Christian Crusades, which killed anywhere from 2 to 9 million people, many authoritarians used Christianity again to seek political dominance. Mussolini, Hitler, Pinochet, the leaders of the KKK, all of them invoked God and Christianity to get the faithful on board. The irony is that Jesus constantly rebuked those who urged him to seize political power or use violence in any way. He consistently preached that his kingdom was not of this world. And this is why I firmly believe that our current church president, a former state Supreme Court justice and expert on the Constitution, is trying to move our U.S. members away from this dangerous democracy-destroying movement. How? By emphasizing religious freedom in this year's America 250 events, which begin this month with a Sunday lesson centered around protecting the religious rights and freedoms of all people here in the U.S. and beyond. And this emphasis makes so much sense as a people who endured intense religious persecution in the 1800s at the hands of the dominant religious groups, not surprisingly, same groups seeking to merge religious and political dominance today. So in short, stop falling for politicians who exploit and use your faith and your patriotism to gain your loyalty and support for something that ultimately works against our democracy and our church. Protecting religious freedom through the separation of church and state is not only one of the hallmarks of America's strength, but the reason our church has been able to thrive here. We can and should celebrate America and its founding documents, but not within the framework of making America Christian again, but rather within the framework of celebrating our strength through diversity and our many, many freedoms, especially religious freedom.